should get started, right? I think you have a lot of material. Yeah.
I'm here for as long as you guys are here.
Yeah,
so,
okay.
Yeah.
Hi, everybody. In the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, one God. Amen. Thank you guys for coming. Jonathan is with us today. He's from MIFA. He's going to be talking to us about college admissions. I have attended, he's been coming here for at least 10 years, every year, every October, maybe more, talking about college admissions. And I've been attending this for years. It's so, so helpful. Because I think if you're starting the college process, it can be so overwhelming. So I can tell you that this is very helpful, and it makes you feel less overwhelmed. So here's Jonathan.
Thank you. Thank you. So just before I start, I guess I want to know where you all are in terms of applying to colleges. So how many of you are seniors? Juniors? Sophomores? Freshmen? Okay, good. So this is good. So some of the things that I'm going to be saying will mean a lot, especially to the juniors and seniors, but everybody else, you know, I was just telling Mary, this is the only time I do this presentation every year, and I feel like I'm still sort of internalizing everything. I learn it a little bit better every time I do it. So if you hear it every year between now and the time you're applying to colleges, you'll have a really good handle on it by the time you do. So yes, my name is Jonathan Hughes. I'm here from MIFA. Before we get started, tell you a little bit about MIFA. MIFA is the Massachusetts Educational Financing Authority. And we've been coming here, as Mary said, for maybe 20 years now, maybe 15 years, somewhere around there. And actually, I said it's been at least 10 years. I know it's been at least 12 because my son is 12, and I've been coming here before he was born. So my colleague will be here in 2 weeks to talk about college financing and financial aid. So you might want to attend that as well if you're heading off to college next year or even the year afterwards. But back to MIFA. Again, we were created by the state legislature of Massachusetts back in 1982. And we have a public service mission to help families to plan, save, and pay for college and career readiness. And we do that in a variety of ways. We have loans, which is what we were initially created to do, was to offer education loans. That's something we still do. However, since 1982, as you probably imagine, college has continued to increase in cost. And just offering loans probably wasn't enough to keep pace and help families afford college. So we have savings programs as well. So we do the Massachusetts 529 plan, the U Fund, and the prepaid tuition plan. But a lot of what we do is this free sort of outreach and education and guidance on college admissions, college financing, how to pay for college, how to compare college loans, et cetera. What I mean by all of this is that we'll be here for about an hour tonight talking about what we're going to talk about, but you will have questions after tonight. So if you do, please reach out to me for a free resource for you to use for any questions that you might have throughout this entire process. So, and I mean that we're very happy to answer those questions, and I know I've met with some of you over the years, and always happy to answer questions, especially from St. Mark's. So please reach out to us. So what we're going to talk about tonight in terms of being admitted to college is what's going on now, what are the current trends, what does college admissions look like for a lot of people, and we always talk about that. Compiling your college list, so that's the first thing. I was on the phone with somebody today whose son wanted to go to college, and they were at the very beginning, they didn't know what was going on. I said, well, where does he want to go to college? And they didn't know. So I said, that's the first thing you have to decide is where do you want to go to college? Where are you applying to? How can you compile that college list? And what are some of the important things to think about when you're doing that? We're talking about campus visits, so both formal visits and informal visits. The application process itself, so how do you apply to colleges? And what's a part of those college applications? We will talk briefly about financial aid at the end because it is important to consider cost even at this early stage of things. So financial aid is a process that should be going on concurrently with admission, so you should be doing both at the same time. And then we'll end with some free resources. So if you have questions, raise your hand and hopefully I can answer them. And if I can't, I'll get back to you with the answers later on. But yeah, we can, have a conversation as we go. It's not just me talking to you. All right, so I need to put my glasses on. Okay, so as far as trends in college admissions are concerned, and this has been the story for as long as I've been doing this, certainly when you compare it to like when I was going to school and maybe some of the other parents here were going to school, their students are applying to a lot more colleges these days because you can apply to multiple colleges at once with online applications. So there's a lot more colleges getting a lot more applications from students, which means that it is more difficult, in a sense, more competitive to be admitted to colleges. So in order to handle that, colleges sometimes use demonstrated interest when they're looking at who they're going to admit into their college. And what that means is that they want to gauge how likely a student is to attend that college if they're admitted. So, if you have a college that you want to attend, if you want to reach out to that college, request some information from that college, they might note that this person reached out. If you see them at a college fair, asking them questions, leave your name. That might be something that they might note. If you go on a tour, they would have that there. And so those things just might signal to a college that you're really interested in that college, and if you're applying, that might make it more likely for them to admit you because you have demonstrated interest in that college. Social media, so a 2023 Kaplan study found that 67% of admissions officers believe that checking out applicants' social media posts to learn more about them is fair game to help them make decisions about who gets in. So college admissions officers may be looking on your social media to decide if they're going to admit you or not. They won't make their decision on that, obviously, but they'll look at that to get a sort of feel for who you are as a student. They certainly don't want to make a decision and somebody posts something offensive and that might embarrass them and they may rescind your admission because of that. That has happened and does happen. It's probably not all that likely that it happens. In fact, I think it's more common for social media to be used by both the admissions and the students as a way to connect with one another. But just be aware, you just want everything to look your best when you're applying to colleges, and you don't want them to see something out there that you would not like them to see out there. So before we start this process, just take a look at your social media. Cost is a bigger factor since the cost of college has, of course, risen every year. We're now at the point where we have, I think it's a college in Massachusetts, I think it's right by here, it's Wellesley, I believe, college, which became the first college to cross the $100,000 a year barrier. So that was sort of headline news when that happened. That doesn't mean that it's going to cost $100,000 for everybody. For most people, it won't. But it's getting more expensive, right, for colleges. So people are considering costs when they're compiling their list, as they should do. Of course, there's more ways, especially since COVID, to interact with colleges virtually. So it used to be that you had to attend, you had to go on a visit, you had to meet someone in person. You don't have to do that anymore. There are virtual tours. There are ways to get in touch with people who maybe live nearby and you can contact and sort of converse with about the college. A lot more colleges are test optional. So it used to be that you had to send your SATs or your ACTs everywhere. But now there's a lot of colleges, I think it's over 2,000 colleges now that are test optional, so you don't have to do that. Longer wait lists, more students, more applicants mean longer wait lists, so you may be on a wait list for a really long time. Most of the time, if you're on a wait list, you probably won't ever hear one way or another if you've been admitted. So I think it's up to 45% of colleges use wait lists now. So we can talk about that later, but there's a lot of that going on. And now direct admissions, and maybe some of you seniors may have seen this already. Direct admissions, or sometimes people call it flipped admissions, where colleges will reach out to students that would be admitted at their college and let them know, you're admitted here. If you want to apply, go ahead and apply. So I think that takes a lot of students, a lot of families by surprise, and they don't really know what it is, and they don't really trust it. But it is real, it does happen. I think it's a way for colleges to really select their class and let students know about them who maybe wouldn't have applied to them. So, anybody see that, by the way? Hands, anybody get an admission? Yeah? All right. Okay, so that's what's happening. Those are the trends that we're seeing in college admissions right now. I think the first thing that we want to say, thinking about admissions being like the very beginning of this process, especially since it really begins with a junior year in high school, is a main theme that you'll see throughout this process is to keep organized. Stay organized, keep organized. This here is just it's a form you can download off mifa.org, and it'll allow you can print it off, you can put in your school name, your admissions deadline, whether or not they need the SAT, the ACT, or neither, and what their financial aid applications are, what their financial aid deadlines are, and any notes that you may have. So this is one of these processes where deadlines are really, really important. It's important for admissions and it's important for financial aid. I know that, in cases of financial aid, if you miss a financial aid deadline at a college, you're probably not going to get financial aid from that college. So it's really important to meet your deadlines, and you just don't want to miss any. So that's going to be a main theme of this and the next year as well. Okay, so if you're at the beginning, if you're even at the very beginning, before the point where you're compiling a list, and this is something, again, I was thinking about this presentation tonight when I was talking to this person on the phone who had no idea whether a student wanted to go to college, but wanted to start this whole process. There are a couple of tools that you can use to research colleges. And it's hard to research colleges because there's so much information and there's so many. And when I was a student before the internet, you had to go and research colleges in gigantic books in the guidance counselor's office and whatnot. Nowadays, there's a lot of tools. The first two actually are from the federal government. So there's College Navigator. And this is something that is just a sort of a repository for all kinds of facts about colleges. So they have every college listed. You can do a college search. You can do search by type. You can do search by geography. And they'll tell you, the college size, the male to female ratio, what classes they offer, what majors they offer, what's the average class size, what is the average cost, etc. So there's a lot of information there. It's a great tool to use. The only problem is it kind of looks like a site with a lot of information. It's not really laid out in a very user-friendly way. A little bit friendlier is the image that we have here, which is the college scorecard. And so this takes a lot of the same information that's on the Navigator, but it frames it a little bit differently. So that there you see is from UMass Boston. And what the college scorecard does is it's supposed to take the relevant information and give it to parents and students in a way that sort of gives them the idea, is this a good investment to make, right? So you're spending a lot of money on college potentially. Is this going to be a good return on investment? So I don't know if you can tell there, but you see you can do a search like you can on the College Navigator and search by geography or search by school type or what have you. But in this case, we just did UMass Boston. It'll tell you right there that it's a 4-year public college in Boston. It's a medium size. The graduation rate is 57%, so that's really important. So if you go to UMass Boston, what's the likelihood that you're going to finish with a degree? They graduate about 57% of their students. Also, what is the average annual cost of that college? $18,282. That's the average annual cost. Now, you may be on one side of it or the other of that, but that is what the average family pays. And then the median earnings of graduates, right? Or so if you, from 10 years after enrolling. So let's assuming you're graduating after 5 years. 5 years out, what is the average graduate earning? So that would give you an idea of like how wise of an investment is this particular school. So those are two federal tools that you can use to start looking at colleges. Big Future is the website for the College Board, which does the SATs and the AP programs, as well as the CSS profile financial aid application, and then our own site, MIFA Pathway, which is a college and career portal that we have for students beginning in 6th grade, going all the way through 12th grade. So all sorts of different ways that you can start to research colleges. So, the freshmen and sophomores, maybe even younger students can just start to look and just do some basic sort of what might be nice. Now, when you're looking at all these different colleges, what are the most important things that you want to consider? What might land a college on your list? So the first thing is the institution size and location, and that's always probably the most important things to students right away. And it kind of makes sense if you think about, different colleges. Where do you want to be? And do you feel comfortable in a small school or a really large institution where you want to maybe disappear, or maybe you're not comfortable there? So that is probably the first thing that students figure out if they're going to be comfortable at a college is what is the size and where is it. Sometimes, like I remember when I went to school, my brother went to Syracuse University. He was a year older than me, and I remember going up to visit him in Syracuse, and I remembered, nah, I don't like it here. This is not my thing. It's nothing against the school, but there was really nothing around Syracuse University. Everything around was the university. And I wanted to be in a city. I wanted to be somewhere closer. So I went to school in Boston. And so that was the first thing I knew right away. I don't want to be in an environment like that. I applied to all colleges in New York City or Boston. So academic fit is the next thing. So where are you going to be able to succeed as a student in this school? You know, if you're a B student, maybe Ivies and Harvard are not the academic fit. And there will be sort of on each college, they'll have their profile of admitted students, and it will show a GPA range of who they admit. It might start, you know, for example, let's say, this is all hypothetical, all made up, but let's say Boston University has a 3.2 to 4.0 student ratio, spread. That's who gets admitted there. And they might have standardized test scores as well. You can research these things on the college websites. Of course, your intended major is going to play a big role in where you go to school. You know, if you're going to journalism school, you might want to go to school with a strong journalism focus, or if you're into engineering, you might want to go to Wentworth or MIT, obviously. Learning style is a big thing. Are you comfortable with small classrooms? Do you like big lecture halls? Some colleges don't even do grades. You just do your own project for the year and you kind of grade yourself, and that's it. I'm thinking about Hampshire College in Massachusetts. And then also, what is it like on campus there? And this is where campus visits really play a big role, but campus culture is really important, right? Is this a culture where everyone's going to be welcome, where a particular student will feel welcome, where they feel comfortable? Is it a very political environment? Is it not? Is it a sports-dominated environment? Is it a commuter school? So is it full of sort of adult learners, or has a large contingent of adult learners? All these things are important, and campus visits are where you can really learn about that. Of course, activities, study abroad programs, if you're interested in those things. If you know what you want to do and you know what field you want to enter, colleges may have a really strong career and internship pipeline, so that can be really important. And then finally, of course, affordability is going to play a role in, or should play a role in, some of these things. I will say that as much as we stress that affordability, and you should take cost into account as early as selecting colleges, I do want to stress that a high price for a school should not take it off of your list. And the reason is because there is financial aid. And 2 weeks from now, as I said, Stephanie from MIFA is going to be talking about that. Most families are not going to pay the full cost of college. The vast majority of families are eligible for some level of financial aid. And the schools that cost more, you're going to be eligible for more financial aid at those colleges, and they often have sort of generous financial aid practices or policies. So, that alone should not remove a college from your list. Okay. Anything before I go on? Okay. So I've mentioned college visits a few times already, and so this is something I would not have really thought of either way until I came across this at MIFA. But like, college visits are probably one of the most determinative things in picking a college. Like, students may have a college that they've been in love with for their entire life, and then they go step on campus and they realize no. And it's funny how quick that happens and how complete that transformation can be. So campus visits are really important, a really important way to get a feel for if you may like this college or not. And there's two kinds of campus visits. So there are informal visits. So college campuses are open. You can walk around a college campus. It's fine, you can't necessarily sit on a class, but you can walk around the campus and you can get, again, a feeling for the culture on campus. What are people doing? Do they look happy on campus? Are they congregating together? You can go and eat a meal in the dining hall. How's the food there? What are people doing? Take a look at the signs. Do they still do signs on like boards, on like bulletin boards? I don't know. But if they do, go to the student union, see what's happening there. So those are really useful to just stop in, see what's going on, get a feel for the campus. The other type of visits, of course, are formal visits. And those are ones that you book ahead of time through the admissions office. Now, we know that this is also a good way, as I said earlier, to demonstrate interest, right? So you can go and demonstrate your interest in a particular school and take a tour. Tours are often given by professors or by students, and they can answer questions. You can find out all about activities, what the housing situation is like there. There are programs that you can sort of go in and spend a week or so or a couple of days and stay with a person in the dorms and just sort of hang out with them and get a feel for what that's like there. And you can ask questions, as I said, and get all sorts of information on classes, equipment, facilities. You know, if you're into media production, you might see what kind of editing facilities or whatever they may have, or if you're into science, see the lab facilities. And it's a good way to find out all of that information, but also, again, to demonstrate your interest in that school. If you can't make it to an in-person visit, let's say you want to go to UCLA and you can't get out to California for whatever reason, you can try to find a college nearby that is similar in size or maybe similar in environment. I know you can't duplicate the weather, unfortunately, but and sort of see what that's like there. You can also do virtual tours. Those are available. And you can have virtual conversations with, of course, admissions officers and alumni as well. So, who here has attended a college fair? Anybody? College fair, yeah. So these are just what they sound like. They're fairs for colleges to set up. Admissions officers come and have admissions information about their colleges. You can go as a student, take a walk around, collect information, talk to admissions officers. Again, this is a good way to demonstrate interest if you want to do that. Sometimes it'll be in the high school, and it'll be fairly small and represent like local colleges. So I was just at one on Saturday in Roxbury, where they had all sorts of college and career options. But there are also national college fairs as well. So NACAC fairs, that's National Association of College Admissions Counselors. They do one every year. I believe it's in Boston. I think it's going to be the end of April, beginning of May maybe this year. That's typically when it is. And they're just an enormous, it's usually at the Seaport, the convention center there, and there are just thousands of people and hundreds of colleges represented there. So you can go and get information on colleges that you know that you're interested in, and also see what else is out there that you may not know of. And so, again, if you're talking to an admissions officer and you want to demonstrate your interest, you can go and make sure he has your name, follow up with him or her later, email them, say thank you. They often have information sessions on things like college essays, financial aid that you may want to attend, and you might be able to schedule one-on-one meetings with colleges, especially those colleges, again, that you may have interest in if they're available to do that. So those are typically for juniors and seniors to just sort of get the ball rolling. Again, you may have colleges in mind. If you're going to a college fair, go to those first. And then, because you don't want to get sort of fatigued, because that can happen. And then once you've done with those colleges, you can go and get information on colleges that you might not be aware of. Okay. So, as part of compiling your list, an important part is going to be assessing the prospects for your admission. So how likely are you to be admitted at this college? So, and there should be three main categories: your likely colleges, colleges that you feel that you are likely to be admitted, 50-50 shots, right, the possible ones, and then the reach colleges. And I always thought this was such good advice. I remember a colleague of mine said the most work that you do in compiling this list should be in your likely colleges, right? So it should be in the colleges that you are likely to be admitted in, because it may be that you're going to wind up at one of those colleges. So you don't want to just throw in some colleges that you haven't thought twice about, or you don't really care for, just to have them, because you may end up attending there. So if you are attending, you want to attend someplace that you are happy to go to. And just because you start somewhere, of course, doesn't mean that you finish somewhere, right? So you can start a education at your likely college and then apply to transfer into your other schools if you want to do that. So, and just like you want to compile a list of prospects for admissions, you should also have a varying cost as well. So colleges that you know you can afford, and colleges that you might be dependent upon a really generous financial aid offer for. And again, make sure that you do the work on those likely colleges. Okay. So there's a couple of different ways that you can apply for college. And so the seniors know this already. But there's a few different timelines. The first one is that we'll talk about is regular decision. So typically speaking, you're going to start applying to colleges in the fall of your senior year. And if you're applying regular decision, you probably have a deadline, an admissions deadline of early January. So you have all fall really to apply to those colleges. Your financial aid deadlines will be even later than that. But that's typically where your deadlines will be. Again, it's important to research each particular college to make sure you don't miss any deadlines. Now there's early action and early decision as well. Early action is just you're applying early and you want to know early whether or not you've been admitted. That's fine. So they might have a deadline of October 15th or November 1st. And so you have to get your application in, and they probably have an earlier financial aid deadline too. And so if you're applying early action, you'll probably hear by the end of the year whether or not you've been admitted at that college. So you may be admitted, you may not be admitted, you may be deferred until the regular pool. Now, early action and early decision, sometimes people get confused and you don't want to do that. The difference between early action and early decision is what's called a binding decision. And so what that means is, just like early action, you're applying early and you want to know early whether or not you've been admitted. But in addition to that, you're telling the college that if you are admitted, that you are committing to attend that college. And so that is, if you are going to be applying early decision, and many people don't anywhere, but if you are going to be applying early decision anywhere, you should only be applying to early decision at one college, because that's a commitment that you can only make to one college. In fact, early decision may require you to withdraw all of your other applications. So make sure, if you are applying early decision anywhere, that you're 100% sure you want to attend that college. You've done your looking, you've done your visits maybe, you've found out all about all the other colleges that you might possibly be interested in, and you know that this is the college that you want to attend. Because the other thing is, you're committing to attend without seeing a financial aid offer, right? So there are ways that you can kind of figure out what your financial aid might be. They're all estimates though. And so you're basing your decision based on an estimate, and also before you see financial aid from any other colleges as well. So just be careful, just know what early decision is, and be careful when you're applying that you're just be deliberate that this is what you intend to do. There's rolling admission, that is without a particular deadline, that's just rolling throughout the year. And they're making decisions. And then open admission, which is you can just attend. And when I'm talking about this, I'm talking mainly about community colleges. They have an open admission policy, so you don't have to apply and be approved for admission. If you want to go, you can go. But there are programs within community colleges that you may still have to be approved for. Some of them, you can't go and say, I want to be a nurse, so I'm going to study nursing, and I'm just allowed because I want to do that. And for that particular program, you may have to be admitted to that program. But the college itself, you can just attend. Okay. All right. Let me know if you have any questions. Okay. So what are the actual applications? There's a few different ones, the most common of which, appropriately, is the Common App. So Now these are applications online that you can file and submit to multiple schools at once, which is why colleges have a lot more applicants to them these days. So the Common App, I think over 900 colleges use the Common application. There are other forms that work in a similar way, like the Universal College app and the Coalition app. I think there are about 150 that use the Coalition app, and I think only a handful, maybe 20 or so, that use the Universal College app. Some colleges will accept more than one of these. So, there are some that may say we'll take the Common App or the Universal College app. Some colleges themselves may have actual websites on their application, and some may even still, believe it or not, have paper applications. So all different ways that you can apply. Again, just want to make sure you know what your college takes and know the deadlines. So it's more than just the application, of course. The application needs to be filed, but in addition to the application, there's like supporting documents, including the high school transcript. That's going to go everywhere. Every place I think wants a high school transcript. So if you're the students here, that your guide, your counselor, your high school counselor will be attaching those to your applications. If you're taking standardized tests like the SATs or the ACTs, then colleges may require that you give them your SAT or ACT scores. It may be optional, and we'll talk about that later on. But most colleges, I think, want letters of recommendation, which is a weird, I've never had to ask for a letter of recommendation for anything else. Maybe I've lived a sheltered life, but it's only for college that I've had to do this. And typically they'll say how many they want, 1 to 3 usually. More is not better. So if they ask for 2, don't send them 3, thinking that it's really gonna go further. It's not. So just be sure to know how many letters of recommendation each college requests. An activity list or resume, and this is something that you can, I mentioned MIFA Pathway earlier, our college and career portal. This is something you can do there. You can build your resume or activity list. A personal essay, which I know most of the questions or most of the anxiety I think felt by students at this point really is surrounding the personal essay part of the application, and we'll talk about that. Those are all fairly standard for colleges, all those things I just mentioned. The last 3 are kind of specialized, so you could interview. Some colleges may offer an interview. Some fewer will require an interview. It's not all that common anymore for colleges to require an interview. If you're going to a performing arts school, they may have you audition, and if you're going to art school, you may have to send your portfolio. So those are all things that could be part of the college application in excess of just the completed application. So, when they're looking at your college application, how do they make this decision of who's going to be admitted? The most important thing in a college application is your academic readiness, right? So your GPA, possibly your standardized test scores. That is the most important thing that is the thing that is most important to admissions officers. And so they want to admit a student that can succeed at that school. And one of the things that they're looking for is rigor. So what is rigor? That second bullet point really kind of says it's good grades versus challenging classes. So obviously they want you to have good grades. That's true, right? Good grades is good. And that's always going to be the case. However, if you have straight A's every year and you're not taking any honors courses, you're not taking any AP courses, that's going to make a college wonder why. So they want to see that a student is challenging themselves in school. And even, to the extent that it says improvement over time, let's say, your freshman year wasn't great. You didn't have a good time adjusting to high school. That's okay. Improvement over time is also looked upon very favorably. Now, they want to see you exceeding the minimum requirements, and there are minimum requirements to graduate from high school in the Mass core curriculum. It's listed on the Massachusetts website. It's something like, you have to take and pass 4 years of math, or 3 years of English, 2 years of history, 3 years of modern language. I'm guessing on those, but it's something along those lines. But they want to see that you're exceeding those, not just that you're maintaining or meeting those requirements, but you're exceeding them. And they want to see, you know, going back to the sort of AP and honors question, and we get this question a lot, is it better to have an A in a standard class or a B in an AP or an honors class? And so it's a little bit of a judgment call. But from what we hear from admissions officers, they do like to see that a student is challenging themselves, so maybe that B in an AP or an honors class would go a little bit further than an A in a standard class. Now, if it's a point where you're getting a C in an AP or an honors class, maybe it's not as good as getting a B or an A in a standard class. So that's where you got to kind of feel it out a little bit, and this is a conversation that you should have with your high school counselor, but they do want to see that a student is challenging themselves. Also, when you're applying to colleges and they're looking at your grades, they want to see what classes you've taken and how is it relevant to your plans, right? So if you're applying to Wentworth or WPI or something like that, and you haven't taken any, you've only taken the minimum amount of sciences and no engineering classes or anything like that, they might wonder why. So they want to see that you're taking courses relevant to your degree. It's a sliding scale for Massachusetts public colleges and universities. So as I mentioned before, colleges will have on their site their requirements or their admitted profile, and you'll be able to see sort of where the cutoff on GPA and SATs and things like that are. For public colleges in Massachusetts, you need to maintain a 3.0 GPA. You need to have a 3.0 GPA to be admitted. If you're not, if you have between a 2 and a 2.9, you could still be admitted if your SAT scores are above a certain amount. So that is what I mean by a sliding scale. Okay, so standardized tests. So I'm talking about the SAT and the ACT here. And the SAT has gone through a lot of changes recently in particular, but bearing in mind over the years that a lot of colleges have gone test optional, things have changed a little bit surrounding the SAT. So it used to be, once again, that you had to take your SATs and send them to every college. Colleges that have gone test optional, it's been a sort of explosion of colleges that have gone test optional in the past 5 years or so, ever since COVID, right? So when people couldn't actually physically go and take an SAT, they had to make some accommodations. And they found that, you know, this worked for them, and that's fine. So if you're applying to a college that does not require you to take your SATs, you can still send them your SATs if they're good, if they're going to boost your chances to being admitted to those colleges. If you like your test scores and you want to submit them, you can absolutely do that. If you're not going to admit your test scores, that's fine, but just know that the weight that they would have put on those test scores in the application will have to go somewhere else. So usually that's GPA. So just you know, have that in mind. SATs, you know, you're going to be taking the PSATs, you sophomores, and your freshmen will take it next year. That's your practice SATs, and then in your junior year, you can take your SATs. You can take your SATs multiple times. So if you took your first SAT and you think you can do better, you can take it again. And studies have shown that your score will improve if you take your SAT again. It'll improve more once you take it a third time. After the third time, that's pretty much it. It doesn't keep getting better after the third time. But for some reason, that's what the data shows. That, yes, taking and retaking the SAT will result in a higher score to a point. There's also test prep that's available, free test prep from Khan Academy and college readiness. You can register there at college readiness at collegeboard.org. And test prep also helps. So there are things that you can do to improve your SAT score, including test prep and retaking SATs. SATs have two components, math and the verbal. You can submit your best scores to colleges. So once you submit one score, it's not like they see all of them. If you're sending your highest SAT scores, that's the one that they see. Some colleges will even let you send your highest verbal and highest math if they're not from the same SAT. So it all depends. ACT is another standardized test, also measures college readiness, also has free test prep online. It says register at, and nothing's there. So let me find out why that's the case. By the way, yeah, fairtest.org provides a list of over 2,100 test optional schools. It said there's about over 2,000 schools that are test optional, and you can find them at fairtest.org. So ACT is similar to the SAT, but there's a bit of a difference. It doesn't go from 0 to 1,600 on the test, the score range. Does anybody know what it does go to? Is it 31? 36. All right, thank you. I always forget. 36. Thank you. And there's not just a math and a verbal, but science as well. And it measures general knowledge and not sort of ability to answer questions. So it sort of is what did you learn in high school, not how do you reason like the SAT. So it's different. Now, I will say that it doesn't matter to a college if it's an SAT or an ACT that you submit. They're both equal. There's not one is looked at higher than the other. Also, there are AP exams. So if you are in an AP course, of course, that ends in an AP exam. If you get a 4 or a 5 on your AP exam, you can submit that to the college, and they may, well, first of all, AP courses and AP exams look good to colleges in terms of being admitted. But if you get a 4 or a 5 on the AP exam, that may be worth college credits at the college. So that's important as well. And each college will have their own practice on that. And that is really the case, I think, with a lot of questions in admissions, is that the answer is it depends on the college. So colleges will have their own practice on a lot of these things versus financial aid, where it's much more formulaic. But yeah, so again, you don't even have to take an AP course to take the exam. Sometimes people do that. But it helps, and they prefer that you do take the course, of course, because it is quite robust. Okay. Anybody have any questions on anything I've said so far? Okay. That's fine. I just get nervous when no one says anything. But okay. So, okay, that is your grades, activity list, and resume. So your extracurricular activities, and of course the first thing that everyone thinks of when they think of extracurricular activities are sports or clubs at school, and that's certainly the case. But it really can be anything. It can be, people say if you are not sure what to put for extracurricular activities, think about what you do after school gets out. What do you do after 3 p.m.? So activities in high school organizations, whether it's sports or something else, of course counts, but so does volunteer work. So there's part-time jobs. You can list that, obviously. Even work that you do around the house for your family, if you babysit, if you do things like that, you can list that as well. They want to know what you do, and they want to know why you do what you do, right? So they want to be able to see that you're not just throwing something on because it looks good, but what did you do in that role? So you're in this volunteer group that did something. What did you do in that? We were part of this club. What did you do as part of that club? Of course, leadership roles look really good. Were you the president? Did you run for president? Were you vice president? Were you treasurer? They were looking for a feel for what you did and to get an idea of what you're interested in and your passion that led you to do this. And of course, it says to highlight your impact on the community. That looks really good. And I know in years past, it's at this point where either Father Sam or Father Mark would pipe in and say, remember you did this and this and this. This could all be things to list on your activity list and resume. So think about things that you've done through St. Mark's, what groups you're part of here, any activities that you might have taken part in. You can certainly list those on your activity list and resume. Okay. Now your essays. So, again, a lot of anxiety about essays. Students have a lot of questions about essays. What am I supposed to write on my essays? As a friend of mine, I'm going to lean almost entirely on a colleague of mine for this section because he speaks so well on college essays. He's an admissions officer at Holy Cross in Worcester. And he says that the essay is his and most admissions officers' favorite part of the application, because everything else they're looking at data, they're looking at GPA, they're looking at test scores, they're reading what other people have said about the student. The essay is the only part where they get to hear from the student themselves. So that's their favorite part. And also that students have a lot of practice in writing essays for their teachers, but they don't have a lot of practice in writing for somebody that they don't know. And also, they don't have a lot of practice in writing about themselves usually. So the question of what are you supposed to write about? You know, I asked him, well, what everyone wants to know, what are you supposed to write about? And he said, it doesn't really matter what topic you choose. We want to know that you can write and that you can write about yourself. And that if you are writing something that interests you and motivates you and that you're passionate about, that's going to be a lot more fun to read and it's going to be a lot more memorable than if you are writing about something that you really don't care very much about, that somebody else thinks you maybe should write about. It's not what you want to write about. So we have done webinars on the college essay with this gentleman. I did a podcast episode with him about it. You should listen to it because they're half an hour and they're really great. He's just great. So one of the tips he says, start writing early. So juniors, start writing the summer between your junior and senior year. You don't want to write too much. You can, of course, solicit people for their opinion, but I remember speaking to a student who had been writing her essay for 6 months, and she just kept changing it because people kept giving her feedback, so she would change it to reflect what they said. You don't want to get into that trap. Write what you want to write. You can read it for people. They can make suggestions, but it should be yours. The Common Application has essay prompts, which we'll see in the next slide. You don't have to pick one of those if you're doing the Common Application. It's fine. They're just ideas to get you started. And I asked him again, you know, is it better if you're reading an essay and you know that, okay, this is from the Common App or this isn't from the Common App? He said, no, I have no idea where it's from. I'm just reading the essay. It doesn't occur to me whether it's an app or a prompt or not. So try a few different things out, see how you feel. If it's hard to write an essay and it's really difficult to write it, it's probably going to be really difficult to read it, as he says. If you have fun writing that and it flows easily, then it's probably going to read that way. Plagiarism is taken very seriously. Of course, I hate even mentioning this, but of course now it's very easy for people to do that because you've got ChatGPT and AI and things like that. And again, I will say that from what I've heard from admissions officers, including this person at Holy Cross, they said, you know, they spend all day reading, they spend months and months of the year reading 17-year-olds' college essays. And that they know when this is not a 17-year-old college essay. Now, that's not to say you can't go and get ideas or brainstorm or sort of work things out using ChatGPT or AI or what have you, but the essay itself should be your work. I think it was interesting. He said, a student asked him about this, and he said, I promise not to use AI to read your essay if you promise not to use AI to write your essay, which I thought was interesting. And leave time for proofreading, because especially if you name a particular college in an essay, first of all, be really careful if you do that, because you hear from admissions officers at Holy Cross that have received essays about why they really want to go to BC or what have you. So you don't want to get into that trap. So this is where parents and other adults and things like that can play a role and proofread. Oh yeah, here's the Common Application essay prompts for the fall 2026 admissions. So who is familiar with these here? Who's seen these yet? Yeah, some of you, okay. So again, these are just ideas that you can take or leave. Doesn't matter. So, okay, Any questions on the essay? No, okay. All right, so letters of recommendation. This is another tricky one. This is one that I probably get the second most questions on is letters of recommendation. So as I said, the college will require a certain amount of letters of recommendation, 1 to 3 usually, and they should be from adults who know you well and can offer perspective on your strengths. So a teacher that you felt really understood you, or it doesn't even have to be a teacher, but typically it's going to be a teacher in your junior year of high school, because that's the one that has had you in class most recently. So they're sort of, you'll be top of mind for them. You should ask that teacher before the end of the year, your junior year, to start working on your recommendation. Because especially, if it's a teacher that a lot of people want to write their recommendation, they probably have a lot of letters to write, and they'll be working throughout the summer writing your letters of recommendation. And so then they can upload those to your transcript and be sent to the colleges. Once that's done, as it says here, say thank you. So again, they've been working all summer on letters of recommendation, so it's a good time to thank that professor. What else can I say about letters of recommendation? If you want, you can prompt, somebody had a good question. You can let them know of your plans so that they know what to highlight. You could even say, I had such a good time in this class, I learned a lot about this, and it really inspired me to study this in school. You might want to say, suggest some a sort of angle that they can take for their letter. Any information that you can give them that might make it a little bit easier or more effective for them to write your letter, you can do that. No questions on that? Okay. And now interviews. There are 2 types of interviews. There are informational interviews and evaluative interviews. Informational is for the student or for the applicant. They're to talk to somebody at that college and get to know the college so that you can evaluate the college. The evaluative interviews is for that admissions officer to evaluate the student. So if you are is anybody planning on doing that, by the way, having an interview at a college that you're interested? You are? Okay. You can, yeah, sure. You can reach out to the admissions office and ask if that's something that is part, and if it will boost your chances to be admitted, if that's what you're looking for, or if you just want to know information about the college. Yeah, you can certainly ask the admissions office. Well, you can ask them if they offer that, or that's part of, yes, and they will tell you that, yeah. Yeah, yes. Oh.
About recommendations.
Freshmen in high school? I mean, I don't see a downside to it, but it just might be you're not going to really need it until junior year. But it can help them maybe keep you in their mind. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks. So if you are going to do an evaluative interview, right, just make sure you study up, you be prepared to answer open-ended questions. They'll expect you to be nervous. That's fine. Or they'll understand if you're nervous, not that they'll expect it. But if you want to do an evaluative interview, it means that you think that this is a way for you to put a good foot forward for yourself, that you do well in these situations of meeting people and getting to know them and interacting with them, which is great. Have some questions for them as well, right? So ask thoughtful questions of the college, and do some prep before you go in. So make sure you have your reason set of why you want to attend that college, what your plans are, what your thinking is, and just be thoughtful ahead of time. All right. So once all of that stuff is done, a college will reach the admissions decision. And there are a few possibilities at this point. You can be admitted, of course. You can be admitted to the earliest semester, or you can be admitted deferred to a later semester. That's an option that happens sometimes. If you apply early action or early decision, they may not make a decision. They may defer you to the regular pool. you can be denied, unfortunately, or you can be waitlisted. So again, a waitlist is a really tough position to be in, so let me talk about it a little bit, since it is really common these days. So waitlists, as I said, about half of schools now use waitlists. And if you're waitlisted and you want to attend this college still, you probably need to, first of all, formally accept a spot on the wait list. It's not just you're on the wait list and you wait to hear. You have to tell them, okay, yes, I want to be on the wait list. Put me on the wait list. If that's the case, this means you need to still get good grades in high school and send those grades to the college that you want to attend that you've been waitlisted at, because it's going to, improve your chances of being admitted. So keep in contact. It does happen that people are admitted off the wait list. I don't mean to give you the impression that it doesn't happen. It does. But there's no telling if or when it will happen. So the deposit deadline, the deadline to choose a college, put a deposit down, and accept a financial aid offer and really pick, is May 1st. So you have to make a deposit somewhere by May 1st. And it does happen, if you're waitlisted, that you don't hear by that point. Now, you may still be admitted off the wait list after that. And you can make a decision at that point if you want to switch schools to the one that you chose and put a deposit on and go with this school now, or if you want to stick with the school that you deposited at. But you do want to deposit at your second choice or your third choice, or whatever it may be, because if you don't, that's the deadline. Yes? How much is a deposit for school? It's a good question, and it depends from college to college how much that is. So it could be anywhere from $50 to $500 or so. So there's a real range there. And the other thing, too, that you should know is that oftentimes deposits are non-refundable. So even if you pick another school, let's say you put $500 down on a school and you say, this is where I'm going, and then you hear from your top choice school, oh, we've admitted you, and you want to say, okay, I want to go to this school now, it's not a given that you'll be able to get that money refunded back to you, unfortunately. Okay. Now we move to affordability. And so the part I think that this should play in the admissions process, I would recommend that you go to a college that you're interested in, or all the colleges that you're interested in website. Every one of them will have a net price calculator with it. And so what that is it's a calculator that is supposed to give you an idea of what a year at this college will cost you. So what kind of financial aid are you looking at, and what's the remaining balance? Now, this is only an estimate. Some colleges put a lot of work into making their net price calculators really specific to their school. Some have not. But I think it is a good tool to use. It should only take you a few minutes to do. It's not really exhaustive. It's pretty easy to do. And it should only take you a few minutes, and you should get a sample financial aid offer with the resulting balance. So you can compare colleges that way. Find out what financial aid applications are required and when. That's really important. I know I've stressed that a few times already. Every college is going to get what's called a FAFSA, which is a free application for federal student aid. So that's going everywhere. In addition to that, some colleges might want a second form, the most common of which is the CSS profile. But colleges may have their own separate applications or their own merit scholarship applications for their own scholarship programs. So that actually brings me to need-based aid versus merit-based aid. All I'll say about that is that just research the deadlines. Those applications that I mentioned, those are all need-based aid. That means that's aid based on how much you make or what you have financially. Merit-based aid is going to be based on your grades or your athletic performance, things like that. Academic scholarships, athletic scholarships. Merit-based aid really changes from school to school. Some schools give out a lot of merit scholarships. Some don't. Some don't give out any. So it really depends on college to college what those practices are. But again, just make sure you know what forms are needed and when. Oh, and private scholarships. You can start looking for private scholarships. if you haven't already. Even the freshmen here can do that. Even some of the kids running around can do that. But I've seen scholarships for kids as young as 3rd grade. So there's lots of private scholarships out there. Talk to your high school counselor for local scholarship information. For national scholarships from like organizations or companies, go to a scholarship search engine. We have one on MIFA Pathway. Only use, whatever you do, only use free scholarship applications, never pay to have one done. The way those work is you create a profile, and based on your profile, the scholarship opportunities sort of get filtered to you and you can apply for them. So when you're thinking about outside scholarships, they're like small amounts usually. So I know there's a lot of people have the idea that there's an organization or company or something out there that's offering, you know, free ride scholarships or $40,000. It's very, very rare. So most scholarships are $1,000, $2,000, you know, somewhere around there. But you know, you apply for them, and if you get one, great. If you get a lot, great. And that can help you to pay the cost. I mentioned net price calculators already, so we're gonna have to go through the slide. And this is just some basic information on those forms that I mentioned earlier, the FAFSA, the profile. FAFSA is a free form, free application for federal student aid. It's out October 1st. CSS, not a free form. Costs $25 to file your first CSS profile form, $16 to each additional college. But there are fee waivers available that a lot of families are going to qualify for. That also becomes available October 1st. And I'll just say once again, you should be doing these applications at the same time that you're doing your admissions applications. Now there's some Massachusetts programs that are specific to Massachusetts colleges that make it free or very affordable to pay for college. So Mass Educate is the free community college program in Massachusetts. So community college tuition and fees it's free in Massachusetts. So that's amazing. That's been about a year or two since that's the case. And that's the program. You have to do very little in order to qualify for that. You need to file your FAFSA and not have a degree already, and you can go and to community college for free. Mass Reconnect is for adults over 25 years of age who also don't have a degree yet, that they can go for free. But there's also been a lot of new Massachusetts state financial aid programs, so there's been a lot more money in Massachusetts state financial aid recently. So Mass Grant was always a grant program through the state of Massachusetts. It's been expanded, and it will make college at public colleges and universities in Massachusetts, 4-year publics, very affordable, if not close to free for many middle-class families. Tuition equity law, it says some undocumented students can receive Massachusetts state aid and in-state tuition rates. That is true, but I would also say it's not just for undocumented students, it's for immigrant students, because in order to qualify for financial aid through the federal government and through the state, you have to be a U.S. citizen or permanent resident or an eligible non-citizen. And if you're undocumented, or if you're not undocumented, if you're in the process of becoming one of those things, a permanent resident or a citizen, you're not eligible. So this is an option for some Massachusetts students that way. Mass Transfer is a program that you can earn basically your 2-year associate's degree through a community college, which you can now go for free, and transfer all of those credits to a 4-year public college or university, and thus only have to pay for 2 years of a 4-year program. That's a great program. That's been around for a long time, and there are levels to that. So that's sort of the base of the program. If you're over a certain GPA, you get other benefits like a tuition freeze, so tuition's not going to increase while you're there, a guaranteed admission into certain colleges, and even a rebate of tuition as you're going through it. You're able to get a 15% rebate on the tuition that you pay. Tuition Break is a New England regional program, and that's if you want to study something in Massachusetts and you want to go to a public college or university so that you can keep your costs low. Let's say you want to study astronomy or something, but they don't offer it in Massachusetts at a public college or university. Well, if they offer it at the University of Vermont, you could go there and pay a reduced rate through the tuition break program. Okay, now, staying on track through your senior year, This is just sort of an overview of what you're going to be looking at starting in the spring or summer of your junior year. So all your juniors right now, you're going to be researching colleges. Hopefully, if you can visit campuses, you can do that. You can certainly visit college fairs because a lot of them are just going to be in your school. You can take or retake the SAT or ACT. Ask teachers for letters of recommendation before you go on summer break. What was it? November, October right now? So you have a long time. I don't know what's here. It's October, yeah. I don't know anymore. But it's going to be, you have some time. In the fall of over your summer of your junior year, you can start doing all of these things. In the fall of your senior years, things, as the seniors here can tell you, things are going to get really busy. You can retake your SAT or ACT, do your applications for financial aid and for admissions. And throughout this time after that, you're going to do a lot of waiting unless you're continuing to send your grades to colleges to bolster your case to be admitted. And then you pick and sort of put your deposit down on May 1st. And then you can start orientation and all that good stuff. I mentioned MIFA Pathway already. This is our college and career portal. You can go and take a look at it. Research colleges, research scholarships, apply for scholarships, learn about careers, learn about actual jobs in the state of Massachusetts right now that are matched to those courses. You can create a resume. You can apply for college and a lot more. Okay. So what you can do now, again, go to MIFA.org, research your colleges, and start creating your list. Here's our social media information. If you want to follow us, we're always posting about stuff, especially about scholarships. So if you're interested in scholarships, we're constantly posting on social media about scholarships because we're always getting contacted by scholarship providers asking us to do that, so we do. And then I'm here for any questions that you may have, but we're always here at MIFA available for you. You may see me here. I come here some weeks for a service. So if you have any questions and you want to ask me,